All right, let's jump right into this explainer and tackle a frustration we've literally all felt. You know the exact feeling, right? You pour your precious time and energy into reading something genuinely important, only to realize hours later that you've forgotten almost the whole thing. You put in all this effort, but the return on that investment, it just kind of vanishes into thin air. Seriously, ask yourself right now, have you ever finished a super dense chapter, confidently closed the book, and realized you remember absolutely nothing? If you're nodding your head right now, you are definitely not alone. We read, we scroll through endless newsletters, we highlight entire paragraphs, but the core information, it just doesn't seem to stick. Our source material describes this perfectly as the leaky bucket problem. Imagine you just keep pouring water, or, valuable information, into a bucket that's riddled with holes. And because we live in this age of infinite content, we naturally think the fix is just to read more, to pour the water in faster. So we buy another book, bookmark another long-form article, open yet another tab. But the secret isn't about reading more. It's actually about reading differently. So good news, you're not dumb and you're not lazy. You're just missing a critical step in how your brain processes things. Section 1. Consumption versus digestion. This brings us to a massive paradigm shift that reveals the exact root cause of why we forget what we read. Think about it like eating. You don't eat just to survive. You digest to absorb nutrients. Well, reading is exactly the same thing. Consumption is just the intake. It's raw reading. It's the mental equivalent of fast food. Most of us mistakenly think this equals learning, but it absolutely doesn't. Digestion, on the other hand, is the act of encoding, storing, and actually absorbing the vital nutrients of that information. Let's break that down a bit more. Consumption is simply the raw intake of information. It's heavily influenced by your reading speed, the format of the text, and even your environment. When you skim a page, your eyes are simply processing the words on the screen or paper. And I really want to reassure you here, if you forget what you read, it doesn't mean your brain is broken. You are successfully consuming. Your eyes are doing their job perfectly. You're just failing to trigger the next necessary mechanism required to hold on to those ideas long-term. And that crucial missing piece is digestion. This is the active, deliberate process where your brain encodes and securely locks that information right into your memory architecture. Without digestion, you're just stuffing yourself with mental fast food and wondering why you feel intellectually weak afterwards. Digestion means translating those raw words into your own internal language. Real learning, true retention, only happens when digestion happens. Section 2. 6 categories of information. Okay, so now that we understand the leaky bucket, what's the actionable solution? Well, the biggest mistake we make is trying to remember everything the exact same way. Reading isn't just one monolithic skill. It's a remarkably diverse set of micro skills. Not all information is created equal. Reading a dense physics textbook requires a completely different digestion method than, say, reading a sweeping fantasy novel. Our source breaks down all information into 6 distinct categories: procedural, conceptual, narrative, analogous, evidential, and referential. Let's map out the first 3 types. First up is procedural. Think of assembling IKEA furniture or writing a block of software code. Your brain uses strict logic and physical movement here. You don't digest this by highlighting it. You digest it by trying, failing, and repeating the steps. Next is conceptual, like understanding gravity or the foundations of democracy. This is all about grasping the big picture and making sense of highly abstract ideas by relating them to what you already know. And third, narrative. Think sweeping biographies. Here, your brain tracks timelines and human emotions. Stories stick so easily because you remember how they made you feel. It's almost like watching a vivid movie playing right out in your head. Building on that, we have analogous information. This relies heavily on creative pattern matching, like saying time is money to make a totally confusing topic feel instantly familiar. Then we have evidential data. Think research papers, complex statistics, scientific journals. This requires intense critical thinking because you are actively comparing the author's claims against hard proof. Finally, there are referential facts, like knowing pi is 3.14 or that water is H2O. Your brain handles this through strict rote memorization, basically drilling it with flashcards until it completely and permanently locks in. I absolutely love this quote from the source. There's a way to eat a salad and a way to eat ice cream. Same with books. It just perfectly sums the whole thing up. You have to deliberately identify what type of information you're consuming. Are you eating a dense, challenging salad of evidential data, or the sweet, easily devoured ice cream of a narrative story? Once you know, you can adjust your mindset and digest it the right way. Section 3. Read less, reflect more. So how do we actually put this entire cognitive digestion framework into daily practice? Well, first, we have to stop falling for the illusion of learning. Highlighting and rereading, they do not equal understanding, and they for sure do not equal remembering. If you're just furiously dragging a yellow highlighter across a page, but you're never giving your brain the quiet space to actually encode that information, you aren't learning. You're just feeling falsely productive. You're getting mentally bloated without getting any actual strength.
So, the most actionable takeaway from this whole explainer is a golden ratio. The number 20. The rule of thumb here is that for every 1 hour you spend consuming information, you need to spend at least 20 minutes actively digesting it. That means putting the book down, stepping away, summarizing the concepts in your own words, debating the evidential data in your head, or practicing the procedural steps. You literally have to carve out dedicated time for your brain to do the actual work of remembering.
To wrap this up, let's lock in our core principles. First, stop treating all reading the same. Identify the exact category of information before you even start. Second, absorb deep, not wide. The quality of your attention beats the sheer chaotic quantity of your consumption every single time. And third, commit to that 20-minute digestion rule. Because as the source brilliantly points out, what is the point of reading 100 books if you remember absolutely none of them? Which brings us to a final question for you to ponder. Be perfectly honest with yourself right now. What is your current reading to remembering ratio on a scale from 1 to 10? Are you pouring endless knowledge into a leaky bucket? Or are you taking the time to actively digest and lock it in? The next time you sit down to read something important, don't just consume it, digest it.